Welcome back to another episode of our podcast. My name is David Levine, founder and CEO of ResTech Solutions. Today, we are talking about inside a modern immigration law practice, balancing client trust, technology, and growth. And I'd like to welcome our guest today, Wendy. So, Wendy, if you'd like to take a moment and introduce yourself.
Thank you, David. My name is Wendy Barlow. I'm a partner at Cohen, Tucker, and Ades. Our firm has been in business for over 60 years, but as you can imagine, there's been transitions during those 60 years. The original founding partners were not very tech savvy. One of them didn't even have a computer in his office. That is a lot different than how it is run today. Those individuals have retired. There is myself and several other younger partners who are running the firm, and we have been increasingly adopting more technology, one to help with case preparation, but also just managing clients, lead generation, all the stuff that you think about technology helping you with. I've been practicing immigration law for over 17 years now. I love it. It can frustrate me at times, but I still love it at the end of the day.
So, immigration law involves incredibly personal and sensitive information. So, how has technology, especially AI and automation, changed the way your firm manages cases while maintaining client trust?
So one of the things it does, we do collect a lot of information about clients for the various applications. It is something where it is risky because if you do have a breach, it can be very costly from a reputational standpoint, but also from an ethics standpoint for lawyers. We can face disciplinary action. So some of the things we've adopted, we obviously have a case management system. Most law firms have that where it's a secure system. It allows us to keep information securely, even to the point, for example, if I put in a client's social security number, as soon as I put that in, while it will print on the forms the whole number because it's required, in our system we can only see the last four. So anybody who goes into that file can't see the whole social security number. It also allows us to have like secure portals to transfer information so our clients can upload their documents directly to us versus emailing something like a tax return where people may not be comfortable sending that, or even copies of their documentation. You don't necessarily want your driver's license floating around out there either. They can upload that as well as information that we would need to prepare forms. And that's a lot of biographic information like address, old addresses, family information. So it does allow us to keep that and keep it all in one place securely. And we have found trying to keep things in a centralized location also helps avoid the wrong thing going to the wrong place. And then aside from that, we can not only can the clients upload documents, but I can make things accessible to my client through that portal. So you avoid an email going to the wrong client because, yourself or your paralegal started typing in John Smith's name and you have three people by the name John Smith and you didn't realize it was the right John Smith's email. Or you start typing John and it pulls up John Jones and you don't pick it up and now you've sent the wrong documents to someone. So we are trying to use that. We also do use AI in the sense for like legal research. We have invested in a product from Westlaw, not trying to give them any specific props or anything, but it is an AI product. And one of the reasons we did that is obviously, AI is a great tool. It can help us summarize lots of documents at a time. It can help us generate research on a topic quickly. But this was a closed search. So if, for example, I get a request for evidence or a decision from USCIS, I can upload that into Westlaw and have it help me identify legal issues or factual issues. And I know that it's not going to be used down the road for someone else's research, or now my client's information is somehow ending up as an AI answer to someone else. So that's a few examples of the things we do.
All right, great. I appreciate that insight. And I know from our prior conversation, you gave me some information and you talked about long timelines and tight deadlines. So, how do you structure workflows to ensure nothing slips through the cracks?
So one of the things that we did, and this was a massive undertaking that I was part of, because as much as it would be nice to not, as an attorney, to focus on, the casework or meeting with clients, you do actually have to do other responsibilities. And one of the things was for each case type, our case management program has various case types. And in those case types, one of the things we did was we created a workflow for every type of case that automatically populates tasks for legal assistants, paralegals, attorneys, again, depending on the type of case and who should be doing what. So for example, if we open a new case, it's a marriage-based green card application. One of the first tasks is everything from upload retainer and make sure the billing is all up to date, to send the client an intake, send the client a list of documents, send the client draft forms, attorney review forms, paralegal make corrections. Like all these things are already preloaded. So this way, when we get a new case, I don't have to sit there and put in individual tasks for people. One, it saves us time, and it does help avoid that falling through the cracks. Because if I didn't put in the task, for example, just because I started to, someone walked in my office having a question, and then I'm a human being, I forgot to go back and add that task, there is the potential for that to fall through the cracks. Now, obviously, as things come in, we have to add new tasks sometimes, but usually those are generated by an email from the client, mail coming from USCIS or the immigration court. So they're a little less likely to fall through the cracks, but this is a way to help us stay on task. And even, for example, like a request for evidence. Not only when I get one of those in the mail and review it, do I assign it to the paralegal to respond. I also create a task for the attorney assigned to the case to essentially follow up on it a week after that other person's deadline, again, to try to make sure we don't miss a deadline. And so far, we have had a very good track record of meeting deadlines. And we also preload tasks. Any tasks that are put in, they are put in on a shorter timeline. So, for example, like this is, you complete this task, the next task populates. We actually have it in on a shorter timeline than would actually be either our internal like deadline for KPI purposes or a physical deadline set by the court or USCIS. This way, again, if someone doesn't see the task right away, we still have time to make sure we're in compliance.
All right, well, perfect. And so you also mentioned that immigration clients are often having to share life defining personal details. So, how do you think about protecting that information both from a legal and an ethical standpoint? And I know you've already mentioned some ways previously, but are there any other processes or procedures you have to help protect the data?
Of course. So while we do use technology and stuff a lot, the legal field is still a very paper based field as well. So that in turn means client information on everything from receipt notices to copies of birth certificates to decisions on applications. Those come to us physically. What we do with those, we have obviously or not obviously, but clients each have their own folder based on matter. So if a client has multiple matters, they'll have multiple files, but they have a file. We store all the files in a file room. That file room has a key coded or key card entrance. So, for example, David, if you walked into our office, you could not just walk into the file room with all that documentation and walk out with a nice file, someone's file that you chose. You have to have a key card to access that. The key cards are strictly limited to employees. We can also, with that information, track who was in and out at a given time. On top of that, we also have security cameras in the office. Now, none of them are in physical office spaces to avoid any potential recording of consultations or other attorney-client privileged conversations, but they do cover the hallways in our office, our waiting area where we don't have those kinds of conversations, as well as there is one in that file room that I told you about. We can see, so for example, we have, the building that we work in, every day someone comes in and empties our trash cans and things like that. Well, they come in after hours. If we have any issues, we can see exactly where that person was in our office and make sure they didn't take anything, nothing got destroyed that shouldn't have been destroyed. So that's another area of a little more low tech, but other security measures we have. If anybody's working remotely and they need to take a file home, that does happen from time to time. That person has to pre-approve the request with the attorney assigned to the matter, and then they have to confirm that they have returned that file to the office when they come back in. Most of our staff does not work remotely. It's usually a day here and there because, the child is sick and couldn't go to school. Or, for example, recently in New York, we had quite a lovely snowstorm. So everybody worked from home that day, and people were told on Friday that there was a potential. If you thought you would need a file, please take care of it before you leave on Friday. For the most part, we don't. Those files are more for storage of stuff from correspondence from USCIS and the other U.S. government agencies we work with. Most of our stuff is digital, so we don't actually need a physical file. But you still need those original approval notices at times. We can't just shred them and throw them away. So we do keep them in office, and we try to make sure they're stored securely for both legal and ethical purposes. Plus, just as a person, I don't want to have leaked someone's information. I mean, I would feel horrible if that happened. So we do try hard to make sure we keep everybody's information safe and secure.
All right. Well, perfect. I appreciate the insight. And, it sounds like you've got a lot of great measures in place. So, and hopefully that brings a lot of peace of mind to clients as well. And so, talking about the practice model that we had talked about in our initial call, you mentioned that you run a flat fee immigration practice, which requires efficiency. So, what processes or systems have had the biggest impact on keeping cases moving without sacrificing quality?
So some of the yes, when you do flat fees, just so people understand, the flat fee is not an arbitrary number we just decide on. We actually have an internal, like every year, or if something significant changes, we have meetings with the attorneys and we set pricing for specific types of cases. So it's not just like I meet with someone and I'm like, "Oh, today I'm charging this amount for something." And those fees are based on estimated time we believe we should spend on a particular case. Now, some cases we do end up spending a little bit more time. Sometimes need a client that you have a client that needs a little more hand holding through the process, or they just send you lots of emails every time they get a document. So there are those. And then there's the clients that I barely hear from. They answer what I need and I don't have extraneous conversations with them. So it is a balancing act. But some of the things we do use, those workflows, those do help us streamline things because the tasks are assigned to various individuals. We do, as you can imagine, when you're factoring time in a law firm, the most expensive person in the law firm is an attorney from a time perspective. Those rates can vary. They do vary a little bit in our office. For example, myself and a couple of the other partners, our hourly rate, if we were to do hourly work, is more than some of our junior attorneys. So we pretty much try to work on things so that our paralegals handle a bulk of preparation for matters and that the attorney time is limited to the things the attorney actually needs to be working on. So, for example, reviewing an application and signing it before it goes out. The attorney takes care of that. They're the one signing their name to it as the preparer. But most of the preparation work, from filling out the forms to putting together the package with the cover letter, is done by a paralegal. I don't personally fill out forms. So that helps us there. Another thing is delineating task out so that an attorney doesn't end up doing work that they shouldn't necessarily. That being said, obviously, if we're in a crunch, we're going to get things done and we're going to make sure it's done right and out the door in a timely manner. So, and that's on us, but we try to use technology to help speed that up. As much as some people may not want to hear this, we also use AI. We use AI for legal research, for, summarizing. I get folders sometimes with the cases I'm working on that have thousands of pages of documents. For me to review that 1,000 pages, even as someone who prides themselves at being a pretty fast reader, it's a time-consuming undertaking. So we will use AI to summarize different things, to identify, um, create a timeline of events, to summarize someone's award that they received if we're doing like an extraordinary ability case. So we do use that. We also use it to help us research. The reason being is not that all of us know how to do the traditional legal research, but the AI lets you ask questions a little bit more intuitively versus trying to structure it for a way for traditional legal research. I don't need to know the name of a statute per se. I can put New York theft offense, petty larceny without knowing the statute number and ask a question related to it for immigration purposes. And that saves me time too, because I didn't have to figure out, oh, well, it's section 155. you know, I do actually know that one. So, but it does help us streamline things and keep costs down, because obviously the more time we have to invest, that will ultimately drive cost up. And we try to come up with fair pricing that recognizes our expertise and our quality of work, but balances it with, the needs of the population, because not all, I work with a variety of clients. I have clients who are here, they're PhDs doing incredible things, entrepreneurs who've created amazing companies, but I'm also working with people who have refugees who've crossed the border with pretty much a backpack. So we have to try to balance that out and make it so that we can provide good representation, but make it affordable as well.
Well, appreciate those insights as well. And as your firm grows through hiring and acquisitions, how do you approach maintaining consistency in case handling and record keeping across different teams or legacy systems?
So the legacy systems, that has been a challenge. We're pretty much out of that. When we do acquire a firm, we've had to adopt to like merge their stuff in with ours, which is always a challenge. Now with the case management system that we have, that will probably be a lesser challenge for us, because we are able to import a lot that we couldn't import as much in the past. So that will help us. But it's mainly, the best thing is having a working system, whether that's technology based, human workflows, a combination, which is kind of what we have. It's about having processes set up and ways of handling cases set up and making sure that those are followed through. Another thing that our office does, we track KPIs for the paralegals and our legal assistants, as well as the attorneys. Their KPIs are a little different just because the nature of what they do. It's not only just what tasks they complete, it's also about consultations and and like how many people they get to hire us. But we monitor these things. We have our office manager runs monthly KPI reports on our staff regarding the number of tasks completed, what's overdue, the average time a task has been overdue. And from those reports, it helps us do two things. One, potentially figure out where we have just overall pinch points that need to be addressed and figure out a process to smooth those out. Or it also helps us, we have monthly meetings with the staff where, for example, I will meet one-on-one with one of the paralegals and we alternate attorneys so the same person doesn't meet with the same attorney. And we go over those reports. We go over where everything looks good. We have the unpleasant, this is not good conversations. And if we have the conversation where it's not good, we sit down with the individual and we work on a strategy to try to improve those KPIs. It's not like if you have a bad month, you're fired. We spend a lot of time together. We pretty much feel like we're family. So firing is never taken lightly. So we will sit down and we will say, look, this last month you completed a lot of tasks, but a lot of it was overdue. And we'll go through specific matters. What was the problem here? What was it here? Sometimes it's the client not getting documents to the paralegal that they need. Other times it's organizational. I just had a meeting with a paralegal and we were working on how she can better organize herself. After that meeting this month, I'm going to see how she's progressed and we're going to give her a few months. I think with this particular person, I think she's going to be able to get herself organized. But if we have to make those difficult decisions, we will. But I think I think it's just, you can't over rely on technology and you can't over rely on yourself. You need to find a balance that works for you, your firm, your organization, that helps you keep on task, because technology is not going to solve all your problems And relying on yourself or other staff and their memories isn't going to solve all your problems either.
No, that's a great point. It's finding that right balance for the each organization. So probably this is one of my favorite questions I always like to ask is about different kind of initiatives going on. And again, you had mentioned in our prior call about getting a new website launch. With your new website launch and deeper system integrations coming online, what new challenges or opportunities does that create for managing client data securely?
So we are revamping our website. It's hopefully going to launch this week. Final edits seem to be done now, which has been a long time coming. So that's been fantastic. The website in and of itself, the biggest integration that is going to working to make sure everything is secure is we are now adding a chat bot, whether you like them or not. It is coming, that is going to solicit information in multiple languages from individuals. So we've had to make sure the individual who is designing this, like we had to vet who we were working with, that where the data is going, making sure all that is going to first it was like, we're going to have it go to an email. And we're like, no, we don't want it emailed. We want it to be integrated into our case management program. Um, and then from there, send a notification to the appropriate staff person who we set the designation for, who we wanted that notification to go to. So that's been one challenge, is making sure that, because even though they're not clients, anything in the legal field, consultations are protected by a privilege, attorney-client privilege. So while it may be a gray area of providing information to a chatbot, we still want to make sure we are as secure and try to protect that privilege even from that initial, high that you get from us. So we're trying to make sure we're doing that. The other thing is also making sure it's how is it integrated into our system, because it's not always a direct integration. That's something I have learned because I am not a tech person. So what are we using to integrate it? How does it get from point A to point B? What is the security on point A to point B? So we've just been making sure that stuff is very safe. So it comes down to like vetting the people. And also, if you start working with someone, quite frankly, I had someone recently we were working with, and the questions he was asking and what he was at, I'm like, do you even know what you're doing? Like, I just got an impression that this was above his comprehension, and we moved on. We stopped working with him immediately and we went to someone else because the risk was just not worth it. That if this wasn't designed properly, one, it could lead to us missing leads, which is not a good thing for business. But two, was information going to be securely transported from point A to point B? And that can cause you, again, problems with the bar association potentially, but just reputational. If it starts getting around that I was talking to the AI chatbot and it asked me these questions, and then 2 days later, I saw it as like content on their website. That's not going to happen, but just an absurd example. That's not going to be good for us reputationally either. So we want to make sure this information is securely gathered and securely transferred to us.
Right. No, I appreciate that. So as we're kind of approaching the end of our time here and wrapping up, I just want to see if you have any final thoughts or comments you'd like to leave the audience.
Thank you. I think the best thing is advice I can do, and this is coming from someone who's been recently working with different companies to develop a website, develop different features, is one, vet. Don't go with the first person you talk to. Talk to a few different people, get proposals, review those proposals. If you don't understand something, because if you're a lawyer, tech may not be your forte. Ask the questions of the person you're going to be working with. It's just like when I have a consultation with a client. I always tell people, at the end, if there's something I can do, I'm happy to work with you, but you have to understand this is going to be a relationship. This is not just a you hire me and you forget about this. You're going to have to work with me. So if you don't think that we're going to be a good fit for each other, please, I'm not saying not to find a lawyer, but look for another lawyer. And I think it goes with any kind of service industry. You need to be able to, I need to feel comfortable asking questions, and I need to feel that your responses address my concerns. The other thing is think about what you want long term. It doesn't mean you have to do everything at once, because obviously budgets come into play, but this allows you to figure out what you want, what your get pricing so you can budget properly, and then figure out, prioritize. Okay, we have these 5 things, we have the budget for 3. These are our top priority, or these 3 make the most sense to start with. We can add these other things later after we start seeing results from what we're doing. So it does take planning. You can't just wake up one day and say, I want to add a chatbot, or I want to add a service that responds to Instagram messages. You need to plan for these things and work it out. Like, find someone you feel comfortable working with. And that's just from experience and frustration. So I'm trying to spare some people that down the road.
Well, Wendy, I appreciate that so much and all your insights. And for those who'd like to know more or would like to reach out, we will have all the information below this video in the description. So, again, Wendy, thank you so much.
Thank you, David. Have a great day. It was nice talking to you about all this stuff.